A dedicated researcher named Daniel stumbles upon a dusty and obscure manuscript while sifting through the archives of the British Museum in London. This manuscript hints at the existence of a long-forgotten curse tied to an undiscovered tomb, believed to lie hidden beneath the sands of Egypt. As Daniel carefully turns the brittle pages, he discovers cryptic warnings, strange hieroglyphs filled with swirling symbols, and mentions of revered texts like the Book of the Dead and the Pyramid texts, alongside descriptions of forbidden rituals steeped in mystery and ancient power. At first, the research feels like a fascinating puzzle that ignites Daniel's curiosity, revealing tales lost to time. Historical narratives dance before his eyes, connecting him to civilizations long gone. But as he delves deeper into the manuscript, strange coincidences begin to unfold like ominous shadows on a sunlit day. Experts who have previously studied the text vanish without a trace or suffer bizarre misfortunes that seem too unnatural to dismiss. The history he once found captivating now weighs on his conscience, bubbling with eerie uncertainty. Nonetheless, Daniel is undeterred, pushed forward by a blend of curiosity and compulsion. He is driven not merely by a thirst for knowledge, but also by a desire to write the definitive work on the subject, to attain recognition as a scholar of significance. Yet deep within him lies a more personal quest, one tied to an unsolved mystery in his own family, a secret that has eluded him for years. As the tales of doom and repercussions inch closer, the whispers of the curse begin to haunt his thoughts. Each gathering storm, each flicker of the lights overhead, feels like a sign that something more potent than mere cultural folklore shadows his research. Nonchalantly, he dismisses these as the workings of an overactive imagination until the first real sign manifests itself. While rising early one morning, Daniel receives an unexpected email from a fellow researcher, Dr. Thompson, who has come across his work and wishes to collaborate. But beneath the excitement of this seemingly fortuitous expansion to his project lies an underlying dread. Immediately after sending a response, Daniel's phone buzzes unnaturally loudly, breaking the morning silence. It's breaking news of Dr. Thompson's sudden disappearance. The unsettling simplicity of her last words in their correspondence, "Sometimes, it's better not to know," lingers ominously in his mind. This web of eerie signs tugs relentlessly at Daniel's resolve. As he sits in his small study lined with research books, he finds himself questioning whether the dread that has begun to seep into his mundane life is merely a facet of exploration or an omen of impending doom. With pages and pages of notes scattered around him, lit by the weak glow of an old lamp, he senses that the words of the manuscript resonate with a terrifying authenticity. Even the ink feels alive, as if charging the air with a cadence pregnant with secrets meant to stay buried. Determined, yet clearly shaken, Daniel now stands at a crossroads, torn between the allure of discovery and the fear of what he may awaken in his pursuit. The curse whispers to him from the depths of the unknown, encircling him like an invisible thread, clutching his ambitions tightly and pulling ever so gently, becoming an unspeakable part of his academic journey. The deeper he digs into this tantalizing narrative, the more entangled his fate becomes, illustrating the true cost of buried truths. Each choice he makes unfolds further mysteries and complicates his desires. With each new page recounting the fate of those who dared to tread where they should not have, the echoes grow louder, propelling him forward yet holding him back at the same time. As the ancient spirits seem to awaken, so too does the profound realization that perhaps some mysteries are not meant to be revealed. The line between hero and hunted blurs, raising questions that could haunt him more than any ancient spirit. What lengths would he go to seize the truth, and would that truth come at too high a cost? Daniel dived headfirst into his investigation of ancient burial sites, captivated by the allure of the past and the mysteries it held. He spent his days at dusty libraries and at various archaeological digs across Egypt, piecing together fragments of knowledge like an elaborate puzzle. With each cryptic text he decoded, the thrill of discovery spurred him on. However, as he ventured deeper into this world, a veil of unease hung over his journey. The warnings that the manuscript hinted at became increasingly real. One afternoon, while collaborating with a fellow researcher named Sarah, she suddenly clutched her head in pain. Her vibrant enthusiasm had been replaced by an expression of unease, and Daniel watched helplessly as she sank into an unexplainable illness. She had been helping him decipher some of the more challenging hieroglyphs, but now she could barely remember simple names and dates. Anxiety coiled tightly in Daniel's chest as the ominous warnings from the manuscript circulated in his mind. In the following days, occurrences grew stranger. One of the interns working with him disappeared inexplicably after mentioning an unusual dream filled with ghostly figures. His frantic search for answers led him to empty rooms and empty hushed whispers. As time went on, it felt like the people involved in his research were being called away, almost as if they were mere characters in his unfolding story. Some arrived to assist him but promptly turned back before they reached the door, frightened by cryptic messages they thought they found embedded in their dreams. At times, his trusty laptop would freeze without warning, and late-night audio recordings would capture eerie whispers of an unknown language, leaving him unsettled. On one occasion, while exploring an ancient burial site believed to house forgotten treasures, Daniel noticed strange symbols from the manuscript emerging on the walls. They flickered like secrets come to life, unsettling him further. The soldiers guarding the dig chuckled and dismissed the symbols as nothing, old graffiti, while he sat there in awe, convinced they were omens connected to the curse. Was he truly uncovering hidden wisdom, or was he stirring something that should remain hidden under layers of history? Despite reassurances from skeptics, an invisible force began to surround him. It felt thick and heavy, making it hard for him to breathe. Late at night, when he reviewed his notes, it felt like unseen eyes were lurking in the shadows, peering over his shoulder as he transcribed the intricate details into his book. The uneasiness took root in him, bouncing between wonder and dread. Should he continue this perilous journey even as the signs mounted? Did this knowledge really matter if his friends and colleagues kept disappearing? The struggle within him deepened. His determination flickered under the weight of growing doubt. Questioning his motives gnawed at him like a dark cloud passing overhead. He longed for truth, but was it worth risking everything? Just as discouragement threatened to overwhelm him, Daniel stumbled upon a pivotal clue that reignited his curiosity. While examining ancient scroll fragments, he discovered a previously unknown map tucked away between the pages. It illustrated the location of an unmarked tomb somewhere deep in the Valley of the Kings, a site without any prior mention in historical texts. This discovery propelled him forward, outweighing the fears gnawing at him. The figure of the hidden tomb shimmered in his mind as it seemed to pulse with energy, beckoning him closer with whispered promises of enlightenment. Whatever awaited him may grant him the knowledge not only of the past but maybe even the truth behind the curse, if he dared to see it through. That map reignited the flame. With a heartbeat of courage, Daniel essayed to brush his doubts aside. Invigorated by this promising lead, he decided to move forward, embracing the momentum with a renewed spirit. The road ahead remained uncertain, filled with shadows, but that very thrill of the unknown enticed him onward, whether willingly or against his better judgment, hoping to unearth secrets that lay shrouded in mystery for centuries, forging his path toward the truth that might ultimately define him. One afternoon, while poring over his notes, Daniel received an unexpected email from an anonymous source. The message was short and cryptic but sent shivers down his spine. The sender claimed to know the truth about the curse and warned him about a sealed chamber lying beneath the Necropolis, hidden from the world for thousands of years. Legend spoke of a guardian spirit, a force both ancient and powerful, demanding respect, caution, and a level of reverence that the living often neglected. Feeling a mix of excitement and fear, Daniel pondered the implications. Here was a clue that seemed to promise parts of the legendary history he sought. With the light of this knowledge before him, he prepared to follow the trail. He carefully analyzed the background and researched historical texts related to other sources of ancient mysteries and lost treasures. Gathering his supplies, he reached out to Sarah, who was feeling better and eager to help. Together, they made plans to investigate the location hinted at in the message, fortified by their partnership and the lingering excitement of potential discovery. As they trekked toward the necropolis, the sun cast long shadows over the sand, transforming a familiar landscape into one that felt charged with energy. Each step seemed to pull them closer to an unseen center, vibrating with anticipation. After hours of searching through low mounds and rocky outcroppings, they uncovered a lost passageway concealed beneath an overgrown ledge. Daniel's heart raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Here was proof that some parts of the ancient world remained intact. With lanterns in hand, they crawled through the narrow entrance, illuminating hieroglyphs that danced across the walls, old guardians preserving stories of the ancients. Support from Sarah fueled Daniel's confidence as they slowly made their way deeper into the darkened space. With each turn of the passage, each new chamber revealed carried promises of secrets yet unveiled. Just as they began to decipher the patterns and meanings in the artwork, the atmosphere shifted. Shadows moved in odd ways, and an unshakable feeling that something was watching grew thicker around them. Then, an event occurred that shattered the excitement of discovery. As Daniel read aloud an ancient inscription etched into stone, a terrible chill swept through the chamber, nearly freezing him in place. The air filled with an intense stillness, then broke as a horrifying glitch erupted in their cameras. A figure, dark and indistinct, appeared in their footage, just behind the stone tapestry they had been studying. It seemed to blend into the darkness, existing both within and outside reality, as if mocking their determination to unravel the secrets of the tomb. Fear gripped Daniel's heart like a vice. He glanced over at Sarah, whose face had drained of color. "Did you see that?" he stammered, pulse racing as dread clawed at his mind. Just then, a third member of their team, a fellow researcher named Mark, who had been documenting the expedition, suddenly vanished. One moment he was recording their discoveries, and then a loud crash reverberated through the dark corridor. The noise ricocheted off the walls, sending waves of panic through their minds. A strange wind whispered through the tunnels, carrying with it a forgotten name that slipped between their ears, light as a feather but sharp and knowing. It felt like more than just a sound, it was a summons. Who or what was watching them now in these eerie shadows? Were they truly equipped for this journey, or had they wandered too far into realms that should remain untouched? Daniel's thoughts raced as he gazed into the darkness, wrestling with doubt. The questions churned in his mind: should they press onward despite the signs that the ancient forces were restless? He felt hollow, uncertain, yet an ardent desire remained in his gut. Could this impossible exploration grant him the truth he sought? There was no turning back now, not after coming this far. Despite the fear that clawed at his thoughts, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. It was time to face the darkness, no matter what awaited them within these ancient walls. Daniel and Sarah approached the final barrier of the hidden chamber, their hearts pounding in anticipation. As they pushed aside rubble and ancient debris blocking the entrance, a sharp breath escaped Daniel's lips. They stepped into the cool darkness of a room long untouched by human hands. With their lanterns flickering to life, they illuminated the enormous walls around them. The air was thick with mystery and secrets, seeming to embrace them. Inside, ancient murals sprawled across the walls, depicting scenes wrought with power and a dark tale of betrayal. Figures representing ancient kings and queens loomed ominously, their eyes seeming to follow Daniel and Sarah's every move. These images painted vivid stories of gods, of people who dared to challenge forces beyond their understanding, only to be ensnared by a curse crafted to forever trap a terrifying entity. It felt as if the walls themselves were whispering a warning, their secrets woven intricately in ochre and sienna splashes. As they examined the horrifyingly beautiful murals, the atmosphere shifted, sending a cold shiver racing through Daniel's spine. Shadows flickered on the edges of the room where there should be none. They danced across the walls in unsettling patterns, almost fluid in motion. A knot tightened in Daniel's stomach. They weren't alone in this chamber. He exchanged an anxious glance with Sarah, whose eyes mirrored his own fear. Suddenly, a sharp, guttural sound pierced the silence, echoing off the old stone. Something stirred in response to their presence. The air around them felt alive, charged with an energy that made each hair on Daniel's arm stand on end. Their exploration had aroused whatever ancient force resided in this tomb. Frigid breath swept through the chamber, carrying with it an undeniable sense of awakening. Daniel's pulse quickened as the realization dawned upon him: the research was no longer just an academic pursuit. They had become intricately woven into the very fabric of this unfolding ancient story, transforming them from mere explorers into potential characters facing the unforeseen consequences of their quest. As the warmth of adventure quickly faded, fear took its place. Exploring the murals, Daniel unwittingly touched one of the images, a lingering figure with a carved-out gaze fixating on him. The moment he did, an explosion of energy surged through the room. Startling symbols began glowing luminescent against the dark stone, revealing their hidden meanings. It ignited a rush of terrifying understanding. The curse was not simply a myth woven to scare away thieves, it was real, pulsating with a life of its own, and they had inadvertently triggered its awakening. The first undeniable proof of the curse emerged as Daniel's vision blurred for a moment. He gasped, heart racing, ancient voices filled his mind, echoing so loudly they drowned out their surroundings. Whispers of dread danced within him, tugging at the very essence of his being, urging him to flee. The name whispered before was no longer a faint echo, it transformed into an anguished roar, rippling through the stones of the chamber as if a chorus of the damned cried for release. Daniel stood frozen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the dark power that loomed before them. A momentary part of his mind suggested that they still had time to escape, but another voice within him questioned if they could truly outrun this dreaded force. Could they escape its insatiable grasp, or were they already ensnared in a web spun from fears ancient and profound? All they had sought in this pursuit of knowledge now bore a heavy cost, and as dread washed over him, Daniel felt the gravity of the curse weigh down upon his spirit. They had stirred something from its slumber, and now the outcome of their dangerous endeavor dangled precariously in the balance. As the energy in the chamber surged, Daniel turned to find Sarah trembling beside him. Just then, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance, Dr. Henry Caldwell, a renowned archaeologist and mentor to Daniel. He had always supported Daniel's projects but had kept a certain distance regarding this specific one. Now, sweat glistened on his forehead, his face pale and drawn. The shadows around him seemed to flicker and twist unnaturally against the dim light, giving him an otherworldly presence. "Daniel, Sarah, you must leave, now," he urged, his voice shaky and urgent. There was no time for formalities. "I should have said something before, but I hoped," he hesitated, with his eyes darting uneasily at the murals, the looming figures seeming ever closer. "I thought there was still a way to contain it. I never wanted to alarm you." "What are you talking about, Dr. Caldwell?" Daniel asked, panic rising in his chest. "What's going on?" "The curse," he whispered, glancing around them as if expecting something to leap from the darkness. "It wasn't meant to curse grave robbers or disturb those who tread on sacred ground. The truth is far worse than you can imagine." Daniel struggled to release his breath, the weight of the revelation slamming against him. "Then what? What does it mean?" Dr. Caldwell stepped further into the chamber, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "It was meant to keep something locked away forever, something ancient that, if unleashed, would bring chaos and suffering to the world. The legends of old speak of an entity so powerful, it could wipe out civilizations." A cold shiver ran down Daniel's spine. What have we awakened? Panic pierced through his mind as memories of the dark shadows, the whispers, and the intense feeling of being watched flooded back, placing clarity on the situation. To his horror, supernatural disturbances escalated like a storm brewing in the abyss. As they entered the chamber, the whispers grew louder, turning into frantic calls. They echoed through Daniel's mind, pulling him toward the unknown. It felt as if the very walls of the chamber were alive with a pulse. They understood the danger and trembled in response. All his past weeks of research and excitement over this discovery transformed into oppression and dread. The revelation that this wasn't just an academic pursuit sank deep. They had unknowingly set an ancient cycle into motion, igniting the fiery core of something that should have remained asleep. As he looked into Dr. Caldwell's worried eyes, he saw accountability laced with fear. His mentor had kept secrets, important truths, hidden amid layers of knowledge. Daniel felt suddenly overwhelmed. The very foundation of knowledge he believed empowered their exploration was turning against him. "And what do we do now?" he asked, fear clawing at his voice. "How can we stop this?" "By sealing it again, but the consequences could be dire, Dr. Caldwell replied, his hands trembling slightly. We must retrace our steps, return the relics, and warn others before it spreads. Feeling more lost than ever, Daniel breathed heavily, glancing over at Sarah. The air felt thick around them, charged with anticipation, a damning tension that melded with realization. They had crossed a line, and now a chasm filled with potential terror yawned before them. Whatever lay outside this chamber sparked chaos wherever he went. It felt as if shadows whispered his name through cracks in the fabric of reality. As storms brewed on the journey back, Daniel resolved that he wouldn't let fear dictate his next steps. Conviction burned bright within him. Was it too late to restore balance? Would their knowledge field them to victory or lead to irrevocable fate? They held the key to the brink of an oncoming darkness. This truth showed him the path and ignited his fight to ensure that ancient horrors stayed locked away forever. Daniel stood frozen in fear as the weight of the curse pressed down on him with unyielding force. The burial site around him began to tremble, low rumbles shaking the ground as if an angry beast stirred deep beneath their feet. Dust and debris filled the air, making it hard to breathe. The ancient stones creaked ominously, hinting that the chamber held its breath before unleashing a storm of rage. Figures slipped into the dim light from the darkness, shadowy outlines that flickered and twisted. Were they spirits of the long dead, memories of past lives, or something more sinister? Daniel's heart raced as spectral shapes emerged, evoking terror that crept into his very soul. They glided and swirled, their features unclear and horrifying. Each ghostly semblance represented a memory, a warning woven into the history of the tomb, to never disturb the resting place of the Ancient One. Desperation clawed at him as he realized he had only two choices: risking everything to try to contain whatever had been unleashed or fleeing the site, leaving chaos behind him in hopes of not dragging the horrors with him. Backed against the wall, a sense of dread filled the chamber. A rapid cadence of his heart echoed in his ears, his mind torn between instinct and responsibility. But in that split second of fear, clarity emerged. Daniel knew he could not abandon the ancient knowledge, nor could he ignore the terror they had unleashed. Dr. Caldwell. Daniel shouted over the rumbling chaos as the walls began to crack and split. We have to do something. There must be a way to honor what should remain trapped. Dr. Caldwell looked fraught with worry, his voice a controlled whisper. We might need to use one of the relics, it could hold the power to seal the curse again. But we have to work quickly. Working side by side, Daniel and Dr. Caldwell searched among the chaotic remnants amid rapidly crumbling stones and fading light. They moved swiftly but carefully, finding a small, ancient artifact encrusted with symbols that resonated with the energy blooming around them. This was a key they had not fully understood, a tool for containing the forces they had inadvertently unleashed. As Daniel grasped the artifact, the air grew frenetic. Dark figures grappled with tangible fury around them, circling in a dance of haunting despair. Their whispers intensified, producing a looming threat that pressed into Daniel's mind, revealing images of anguish and loss. The faces of those trapped in the tomb flickered in and out of focus, each holding a profound sorrow, begging for release yet felt imprisoned in turmoil. Time was running out, the burial site groaned with anger as the earth beneath them quaked violently. Daniel took a deep breath, knowing the choice must be made. Drawing on every ounce of courage dwelling within him, he turned to Dr. Caldwell. We have to stand our ground. If this is how it ends, then we will face whatever darkness is here together. We can't let it spread. With determination, they positioned the relic at the center of the chamber, preparing to release its dormant energy. The air thickened with intensity as radiant light shot forth, illuminating the faces of the spirit figures around them momentarily before piercing the very heart of the curse. Daniel struggled to maintain his grip, willing the artifact to channel a force strong enough to brave the dark tide overwhelming them. But just as hope surged within him, a final terrifying moment erupted. A shadow lunged out of obscurity, spiraling at Daniel like a boulder of pure despair. It slammed into him hard, knocking the artifact from his hands, which clattered and tumbled across the stones with a finality that echoed like a gong. In that moment, as the chamber shuddered and the darkness enveloped him completely, Daniel felt the chilling truth: the undeniable realization that the choice had been lost. The shadows tightened their grip, pulling him into depths unknown while an anguished scream echoed in his heart. The moment sealed their fate, locking him within the gripping curse, enveloped in the ancient past made real. Daniel emerged from the tomb, the weight of the darkness still clinging to him like a heavy shroud. Though his physical self had survived, deep within, he felt irrevocably changed. The air outside was fresh and bright, but to him, it felt oppressive and suffocating, bearing the invisible weight of lingering shadows. Shaking off the dust of the ancient chamber was futile. The curse followed him relentlessly, whispering secrets in the back of his mind. In the days that followed, Daniel's life became tangled with unsettling occurrences. As he moved through his daily routine, a disquieting feeling nestled in the pit of his stomach, a sense of being watched. The feeling grew stronger, stirring like a restless spirit just out of sight. He often glanced over his shoulder, convinced that shadows flickered just beyond the corner of his vision, waiting patiently to pounce. Whether in the gentle sway of the leaves or the quiet hum of late-night streetlight buzz, he could feel an ever-watchful presence shadowing his steps. His attempts to escape this anguish manifested into vivid dreams. During the night, sleep brought forth tormented visions of the chamber, phantoms reaching for him, filled his head with frantic whispers in languages he could not understand. He awakened each morning drenched in sweat, hearts pounding wildly, the visions slipping away like fine sand just to unravel in his consciousness yet again, leaving behind only dread. News traveled fast. Friends and colleagues who had witnessed the events at the site spoke of their own unexplainable disturbances. They came to him holding their heads, consumed by confusion and fear. Sarah started having strange incidents too. Once, she recounted feeling someone brush past her when no one was there, claiming it felt as though fingers had brushed against her skin, an echo from the tomb's ancient corridors, refusing to let go. Each shared story of disturbance made Daniel wince. He knew this was more than coincidence. The malice of the curse had spread, carrying remnants into their lives, distorting reality and unraveling peace. Daniel grew increasingly desperate, furious that this knowledge wouldn't be extinguished. He attempted to destroy all traces of their research, files and notes, anything that served as a reminder of what had occurred. But post-explosion moments would reveal the drawings and staggering symbols remain untouched, appearing swiftly like weeds in the cracks of pavement. Bound to the shadows, he understood an immovable force guided his life now, preventing him from severing his ties with that horrible truth. The effort to erase the history felt like fighting against the tide, the knowledge firmly established in existence refused to be unwritten. The first clear sign of his inescapable entanglement with the curse emerged one evening when he sat at his desk, head in his hands. As but a glimmering spark danced among the dusty papers near him, a figure appeared in the center of his vision from the corner of his room. It flickered but didn't vanish. The familiar uniformity of the lost souls visited him, yearning, promising answers yet invoking fear. This unrelenting communion was a reminder he could never truly escape what his actions over the tomb had disturbed. As the boundaries between his world and the curse's shadows blurred, Daniel felt imprisoned in a swirl of energy that danced just outside of reach. He had become part of an unfolding tale, an unwilling character bound to a legacy that refused to die, whether physical or intangible. The curse now had a narrative grip on his life, and little did he know, the realities he faced were far from over. Each encounter with the enigmatic force kept alive the haunting truth, they were inextricably connected, and with each passing day, its hold tightened a little more. Desperate for a solution, Daniel scoured the dusty tomes of ancient history and mysticism, seeking perspectives that had long been dismissed as forbidden. The urgency to break free from the curse gnawed at him relentlessly, and every unsettling vision pushed him further down a dark path. The legends he uncovered spoke of a ritual, a powerful act that could counteract the curse and restore balance. But as with all stories steeped in ancient myth, the knowledge came with a heavy price, a price that chilled him to the bone. Daniel spent sleepless nights transfixed by the writings. Each word hinted at the possibility of redemption, but the shadows in his mind pressed harder for clarity. The ritual would require a focus on intentions pure enough to wield against the dark forces. Months of fear, turmoil, and haunting visions left him questioning what pure even meant anymore. The fragments of his old life felt distorted, tainted by the sorrow woven into his existence since that fateful day in the tomb. In the flickering candlelight, shadows danced, reminding him of the betrayal that led him to this point. Dr. Caldwell's secretive ways now bubbled to the surface. The same mentor who once championed Daniel's thirst for knowledge had concealed the full truth about the curse. As Daniel leafed through ancient accounts, he felt frustration rise within him like an uncontrollable fire. Was the betrayal the key he needed? Would confronting him reveal the final pieces to escape the curse? Days turned into a reckoning as Daniel resolved to confront Dr. Caldwell. Driven by desperation and anger, he finally asked his mentor if he knew more about the ritual. Expecting hesitation, Daniel was taken aback by the directness of his reply. The old archaeologist had not only known of the ritual but had supposedly participated in discussions of terrible price that accompanied it. The act requires a personal sacrifice, Daniel, he said, his tone somber, eyes cast down. To restore what has been disturbed demands a tribute, something deep and valuable from within you. Why didn't you tell me? Daniel's voice surged with indignation. You should have warned me. Dr. Caldwell sighed, his features softening. I kept the truth hidden to protect you. The past is not a place to tread lightly. This conversation resonated painfully within Daniel. As he stood before the embodiment of his mentor, a whirlpool of conflicting feelings surged inside him. Was restoration worth trading pieces of himself? As moments passed, visions of terrible loss haunted him. Was he willing to sacrifice friendships, his academics, or even more substantial parts of his soul for this chance to free himself from the curse? The question loomed large over him, unabashed in its scrutiny. If he dared to go through with the ritual, what would it take away? How much of his humanity? The knowledge he sought almost felt like a silence balancing on a knife edge. Was power worth it? Could he return to his peaceful life afterward, or would he bolster future pains by taking this risky course? Gnawing doubts finally surfaced fully. The uneasy notion that perhaps he should not indulge in forbidden paths and detrimental knowledge for his benefit lingered, yet the fear gripping him propelled him forward. Craving normalcy, he offered silence to the shadows. The very artifact retrieved became intertwined with him in unseen ways when Evan should have left it behind. With a new resolve pulsing through him, Daniel took careful steps back into the light of the world, resolving to make another choice. Under every decision today laid the weight of consequences for the past. Now the lesson awaited him to confront darkness anew, remain unbroken in his search for balance, and emerge whole once more. This journey must mutate Daniel's interpretation of sacrifice, a delicate dance reformation among a push away from asserting power unto dark remnants. Daniel stood at the threshold of the excavation site, the air heavy with uncertainty. After months of turmoil and haunted nights, he finally made his choice. The ritual had unfolded before him like an ancient script, demanding a price that ripped through his reality. But in making the sacrifice to counteract the curse, another force had emerged, one that replaced the original dread with an experience he hoped would bring peace. The shadows cast by the tomb seemed to ripple in response, as if they recognized the work he had undertaken. In that moment, a wave swept through him. It was neither a total victory nor complete defeat. The curse had transformed, evolving into something quieter, more insidious. It no longer followed him like a monstrous beast, but rather lingered in the background, a quiet whisper he could not ignore. The dreams that had tormented him now held threads of memories, weaving tales that suggested wisdom rather than horror. Daniel stepped back into the world, carrying a wisdom forged through hardship. The research papers and artifacts remained safe in his possession, but he no longer felt the irresistible urge to uncover every mystery surrounding them. Instead, he embraced a newfound understanding of history, the respect owed not just to the knowledge itself but to what it meant for those who had come before. Each item now felt like a testament to a silent story, demanding fragility and awe. The knowledge that had once burned with power now felt like a reminder of his own limitation. Wisdom could only go so far. Despite the curse still lingering, Daniel had felt the empowerment of facing fear rather than running from it. No longer did he see shadows as threats, but rather as reflections of the past, layers that needed respect and understanding. Yet shadows possess a life of their own, and as his journey spiraled forward, Daniel could not shake the feeling that something deeper rooted in the tomb still lay hidden, waiting to reveal itself. There remained an edge in the air, as if the past was not quite finished with him yet. He could sometimes sense the familiar echoes of whispers, hints of truths left untraveled. As days turned into weeks, the echoes of voices tethered to frayed ties of the curse took on a different face. When Daniel guided fellow researchers and students through the excavation site, sharing both warnings and cautionary tales, he saw shadows dance lightly around them, graphic images surfacing in the corners of their minds. He sensed how easily curiosity intertwined with danger, a bond that traversed generations. In those quiet moments of storytelling, he held back the most terrifying parts of what he endured but found a way to frame the experiences. The old fear gave way to lessons steeped in reflection, a path paved with gratitude for facing truths which sculpted him into someone different, someone who saw not only the darkness but the potential for growth from light. Yet during nights still restless, the moments lingered, thoughts of what remained unsolved. Did he truly manage to break the curse, or had he merely granted it a new form, empowering it with a will of its own where oblivion lingered? The final scene solidified an eerie resolve in Daniel. He stood before another gathering, a team reflective of his former self, unaware of the echoes yet surrounding them. Beneath the surface lurked tantalizing whispers, promising deeper mysteries that could either fold them into safety or prompt repetition, a cycle that allowed history to breathe through generations. For while he navigated his path back into the light, the stories cast shadows on the future, reminding those who dared inspire of the burdens and braveries echoing from the past. The curse, no matter its form, remained tangled in the fabric of life, a wisp of intrigue now woven through time, leaving behind an unanswered mystery that may never truly vanish, forever instilling a reminder within them all.